When patients come in saying that their eyes look tired or heavy, my job isn't to guess the procedure, it's to understand why the change is happening and how I can help them out. Here are the key features I analyze during a quad bleph or a bella lift evaluation. One, I start with the brows. I always start brows and move downward. So let's evaluate what happens with aging. Usually with brows, what you notice is that the position of the brows changes with time and there's a slow descent. That descent usually happens more so laterally than medially in most people. Two, what I notice is volume loss in the eyebrow. And I want to evaluate how much volume loss is present and whether also fat grafting is necessary along with the brow lift in those particular patients. If the subbrow fat pad has lost volume, that also can lead to descent. Third is tissue laxity. The brow also has laxity in itself. So as aging occurs, you lose volume, but the subbrow fat pad, laxity also occurs, and then what you're noticing is the brow starts to shift downward. That's called brow ptosis, and that's where I evaluate patients for a brow lift. Second thing I evaluate for is the upper eyelid. So sometimes the heaviness is true extra skin. It's not a brow issue. Most of the time, if it's a brow issue, it's also an eyelid issue. But in some cases, the brows are well positioned, but I'm evaluating and seeing true extra skin. That's what I'm looking for. And whether or not there's excess fat, which is present usually near the nose, that's called a nasal fat pocket. I usually trim a little bit of that if that's very prominent. I also evaluate for volume loss in the upper eyelid. Just like I'm evaluating for volume loss in the brow, is there volume loss in the central sulcus as well, which could fat grafting help at the same time? So these are the two issues that I look for right off the bat when it comes to the brows and upper eyelids. Now, when it comes to the upper eyelids, I'm now going further into evaluating where the patient's natural crease is. So I've identified that there's extra skin, whether they need an upper lid blepharoplasty or not. So then I look for the eyelid crease. Where's that crease set? Is that crease similar to the other side? I'm evaluating for symmetry. I'm evaluating for asymmetry. And if there is some degree of asymmetry, I'm going to be correcting that during the time of surgery to make those creases look as similar as possible. Those are important things I look for. And if somebody does not have a strong crease, I can end up strengthening that crease through a certain procedure called a lid anchoring suture fixation, which I often do in patients that require double eyelid surgery. What I look for in the upper eyelids is other particular areas that are not always seen in most people, but for instance, lacrimal gland prolapse. Some patients will come in and tell me, Doc, I notice I have some fat here. I also have a big fat pocket out here laterally. There's generally no fat pocket that's present laterally. That's usually a lacrimal gland that's prolapsed. So again, it's not commonly seen, but I see it in my practice enough that I evaluate for it, and if it's there, it can be treated at the same time as an upper lid blepharoplasty. Let's move on to the lower eyelids now. This is where I differentiate between true excess fat or essentially hollowing that's causing what's pseudo herniation that's due from volume loss. Oftentimes we see both, but sometimes we see one versus the other. A lower lid blepharoplasty, when I incorporate with or without fat repositioning and fat grafting, is appropriate for those patients that have true fat prolapse, when they actually have what's called eye bags that are present. When fat pockets are present, those patients are candidates for a lower lid blepharoplasty. If there's adequate fat for me to reposition, I will do that. The repositioning is important to improve the underlying volume loss that's present along the infraorbital rim. Now, if patients also have midface volume loss, which most patients do, when it comes to eyelid aging, that's where fat grafting can be a beautiful addition to improving the midface structural support and also the cheeks if need be. So all in all, lower lid blepharoplasty is not something I do by itself anymore. I rarely do that. Usually I incorporate volume augmentation, whether it's using your own fat, repositioning it, with or without fat grafting. Fat grafting is a separate fat that I take usually from the inner thighs or the abdominal area. This is very stubborn fat that generally does not go away by itself too easily. It's what we call stubborn fat, and for that reason, it's a very healthy, adequate place to harvest the fat, prepare it safely, and inject it in the midface and the cheek area. And then what I also do is evaluate the tone of the eyelid to see if the patient needs structural suspension to the lower eyelid at the same time of a surgery. Meaning I will evaluate the distraction test, the skin tone by pulling down on the eyelid, seeing how it snaps back. How far can I distract it away from the eyeball? That gives me an idea. Is there a lot of laxity in the eyelid? And if there is, that's where I can perform lid tightening procedures such as the canthopexy or even a canthoplasty. And lastly, what I look for is the skin texture. What do I need to do to improve the skin texture? Eyelid aging is not just fat prolapse, it's not just hollowing, it's also skin texture, especially in the lower eyelids. Do I need to remove skin? Does the patient truly have excess skin? Does the patient need resurfacing with either a CO2 laser or even a chemical peel? These are things that I will evaluate and recommend for the patient. So these details influence whether a lower blepharoplasty should really incorporate these items and measures to get the best results as possible for these patients. Lastly, I step back and I assess how the entire periorbital structural changes relate to each other as a unit. I assess the brow, the upper lid, the lower lid, the midface, the periorbital volume loss as a unit. And the best results come from correcting the true source of the change, not treating each feature in isolation. And hence, that's what I call the Bella lift, full rejuvenation of the upper face. So whether somebody needs upper bleph or lower bleph, fat repositioning, brow lift, or sometimes all three, the recommendation is always based on anatomy, movement, long-term harmony. It's never a one-size-fits-all decision. So if you've noticed changes around your eyes and are unsure about what's causing them, you can certainly schedule a consultation or request a free virtual assessment. I'll evaluate the structure directly and explain which option, surgical or not, aligns with your anatomy